Thanks very much for coming along, Sheila. Great to have you here. And just feel free to firstly introduce yourself, speak about maybe the career path you chose, marketing in particular, and how your career operates in the real world. You
Yeah.
have the floor.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today. And I hope that after this, I can answer some of your questions or even just make you guys a little bit more confident going forward in the marketing world. So yeah, a little intro about me. My name is Sheila Bugal. I'm from Germany originally, but I grew up in Switzerland and the UAE, so more specifically Dubai. And later, when I went on to study, I moved to London, and now I'm in Switzerland, so back in Switzerland pretty much. And I'm currently head of marketing at a tech startup called Caplena. And I'm also currently getting my master's in marketing. What I think might be interesting to know is that I started out not in marketing at all. I never even thought about marketing, back when I was deciding what to study. I started out studying media music composition. So this is what I got my bachelor's in. And what media music composition is, it just means that you write music to things like films or ads or even immersive art installations. It can be anything pretty much. And it's very creative and it's still very close to my heart, of course. But I just realized very quickly, in like about 1 year in, I realized that it was a bit lonely. You literally sit at home and you just write your music all day and all night. You don't really interact with people. So even though, it was very creative job, it was very one-sided in its creativeness. So I felt like I wanted something a bit more varied and a bit more social, but not just creativity wise, but also to be a bit more strategically challenging, I guess. So I decided I'm going to do something completely different. And I applied to this PR internship, not really thinking much of it. And they took me and I enjoyed it so much that it turned into a job. So I was actually working as a PR assistant for this company. It was like a music management company called MN2S. And I was doing that on the side of my studies. And from then on, I went on to work as a marketing manager at a film production company. And from there, I moved back to Switzerland and did some freelance marketing, like mostly content creation stuff. And now I'm head of marketing at Caplena. So I know this sounds like it's such a perfect occurrence of events and it's such a straight line, but to be honest with you guys, it really wasn't at all, because I haven't yet mentioned all the things that I've done in between. And the reality is that 1 year actually leading up to the job that I have right now, I actually did something completely different as well. I was learning video game music implementation. So basically learning like the programming languages, C#, C++, and middleware. I don't know if you know these, but maybe Unity says something to you, Fmod and Wise. So yeah, completely different. But to be honest, from the point where I started studying, I always did both. I did music on one side and I did marketing on one side. But there came a point, where I decided, okay, I have to just, make my mind up for one. So I decided for marketing because I just really enjoy this job. And this brings me to, I guess, like the first section, which might be interesting to you guys, which is applying to jobs like CVs and cover letters and so on. So not just talking about when I applied to this job, because I've applied to multiple jobs as well as internships. And Caplena just finished its first seed funding round. And I'm seeing a lot, of interviews, and I feel like I'm getting a good feel for this whole CV and cover letter thing. So I have a few tips for you guys. The first tip for applying to jobs in marketing, or actually any job, is to try at least to not treat it like it's some sort of a mass production factory thing. And I know it's hard because with everything being online, you basically just feel like a number. There's so many things and it just seems like nobody answers you, and you just apply and you apply and apply, and it's just like boom, 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 and the day is over and you've applied to like 100 places and no one answers. But I highly urge you to just like fight against this urge to just apply so much, and instead really, really take your time, and instead when you're applying to do maybe 2 companies a day or max 3, and instead just really try and personalize your CV. So when you see like the job description, maybe they really have as a first bullet point something that you have not really highlighted, but maybe you did it, but you didn't highlight it enough on your CV. So maybe you can just fluff that up a bit more. And also, I know like this is kind of a debate as well. Some people are really against cover letters, some people are for them, but to be honest, I'm for cover letters, because that way, if you really take your time to craft something, you know, personal to this company, it just shows that you put more work in than like 99% of the other people who are applying. And I think that's pretty much a good thing. My next tip is to be a bit old school, and I know some of you are going to hate this tip, but it's really you should try it. What I mean by being old school is by literally printing out your CV. And I don't know if you guys live in a more densely populated area, but for example, when I lived in London, I would take like the Soho Square, like on Google Maps, and I would look for all the relevant marketing firms there. And I would make a list, and I would go to every single one with my CV, and I would be, I know, that annoying person, and be like, hi, my name is Sheila. I'm looking for something marketing related. Here's my CV. Can I talk to someone from the marketing department? And yet it feels a bit, you know, like you're that one annoying kid. But to be honest, it never had any bad consequence. This way of going about things got me almost all of my internships, and it got me 2 jobs as well, actually. So you just have to be smart about it. And yeah, you will get rejected for sure. But even if you do get rejected, I got a lot of like really cool, you know, talks out of it. People would just have coffee with me and give me some advice, and that advice was always really valuable to me. So yeah, that is another tip from me. And also, because literally nobody does this anymore, they will 100% remember your face. So even if they don't have something, you know, at that moment, they will 100% remember that one guy or that one girl that just like turned up. Like, who does that anymore? The next tip I would say is to just be honest. And I know this kind of goes without saying, but I thought I'd say it anyways, because also you'd be shocked how many people lie on their CVs, like big lies as well. But it could also be like smaller lies, like leaving out certain things. For example, for me, when I had like all of this music experience, but also all of this marketing experience, in the beginning, I was thinking, should I maybe just cut out that music, because it's like not relevant at all. But then I decided, no, you know what, I'm going to be honest, and maybe this is good, because, you know, I also did a lot of projects that I worked really hard on, and yeah, they weren't marketing, but it's still, that's what I thought, it still would show that I was hardworking. So I left it, and it worked. So yeah, I actually for today's talk, I asked my boss. I have 2 actually. So we have 2 co-founders, Pascal and Maurice. So I went up to them today and I asked them, I know this is an awkward question, but why did you hire me? Because, you know, I saw that they had the possibility to hire a lot of people that were way more qualified for this job than I was, on paper at least. The response was that they thought, you know, that I showed like everything, also the video game music and so on, that I was very creative and most of all hardworking, and was willing to, you know, learn new things, and also that I just had the relevant skills for the job from experience, and that was the most important thing for them. So that's what they said. In conclusion, I'd say just be honest about who you are as a person, because either way they will find out. So I'd rather, instead of hiding it or, you know, downplaying it, I'd rather use it to your advantage. Does anyone have any questions until now, until I continue talking about marketing in real life?
Well, with your job, even, how did you get it? Just literally by going into the office?
Oh no,
Or
not this one. This one I actually got the normal way. I don't know if you guys are aware. There's this website called Angel List. So it has a bunch of startups on there. And I've always been a fan of working for startups. I also worked for like more corporate companies as well. And this was good in the beginning for just gaining some insight and experience, but it wasn't really so much my thing. That's why I was like seeking out startups. And there on AngelList, I basically just sent in my CV. I had a very, very detailed cover letter. I remember I spent like 1 or 2 days writing it up. It was like very intricate. And I remember that's the first thing they told me as well in the interview, like, wow, you put so much effort into this cover letter, like you have so much detail and so on. Like that stuck out to us immediately. But yeah, that's how I got it basically, through AngelList.
Okay, good to know. I've never heard of that website, and I'm not heard of the web, but yeah, sounds very good. I'd say you're safe to continue anyways.
Yeah, I guess I'll move on to the marketing in real life. What is it like? I guess before, like, there's a little disclaimer. Obviously, since we're also talking about startups and corporate environments, working in a startup environment is of course completely different to working in a corporate environment. And what a marketing manager does versus content creation, those are like very different things. So just like little disclaimer, when I talk about my experience, I'm talking more about the startup environment. But if I could sum it up, we're working for a startup, it's very, very fast paced, and you also have to take on a lot of responsibility. Sometimes when you learn these things at uni, it seems like, okay, you do this and then your job ends. But in real life, if you work for a startup, many of these things are gray areas and they just kind of like overlap. But I think the core of what this job actually entails and what it is, it always stays the same. So the most important thing, like no matter if what type of environment you work for, is that you have a good strategy. And I call this my marketing Bible. This strategy is what you should invest most of your time in as a marketer. I know sometimes it's easy, or at least this is my experience. I tended to get a bit lost, in the beginning, in these small details that were really not important. Like, oh, okay, but what if should I do 2 social media or 3 social media posts a week? And it's like, this is not the important part. The important part is the overall strategy or marketing Bible. So the first thing out of the 3 steps that I think is also one of the most important is that you should define your rough goals. If this phase, I guess, was a question, it could be something like, where do I want to be, or where do we want to be in 1 year or 3 years or 5 years? Or for example, how many customers do we want to gain within the next year? How much budget do we have for this year, or do we need to define the budget? These are all like normal questions that you have to answer in this first phase. And this is also another like point that I didn't know in the beginning. When I was writing up these marketing Bibles, I thought for some reason that I would have to do all of this and know all of this by myself. But collaborating, especially on this first phase, is really important, because there's no way that you know the answers to all of this. And collaborating on this is also normal. It's very important and it's normal. So you shouldn't feel weird, for asking around and collaborating with different parts of the company to come up with your plan. Because at the end of the day, they have to overlap, right? So that's the first phase, I would say, of building your marketing Bible or your strategy. Only after you've done that, you can move on to the second phase, which is then you have to basically work on your tactics. Or tactics could also, I guess, be synonymous to channels. We have the questions, where do we want to be in X years? How many customers? Now we want to answer the question, okay, but how will we achieve these goals? Through these channels. So for example, a channel could be like Google Ads, another channel could be social media, another channel could be live events. So basically what you do is you just define what those channels will be and not much more. So only after you've done number 1, number 2, you can come to the third phase, which is only then you should get more into the specifics, which is then planning campaigns and so on. So you should never go ahead and just like start planning out random campaigns for the year, first it's vital that you have to do these 2 steps first. So yeah, for these campaigns, you can definitely brainstorm and look at, what fits seasonally and so on, and be creative. But the idea is not that you know every single detail to every single campaign, because that's not possible. The idea is just that you kind of plan the structure of the whole year in terms of themes, and also budget, of course, but keep that plan malleable, so you're not like stuck to it. It's not like you can't change anything, especially when you're just starting out and maybe, for example, your company has never done Google Ads before, or they did it completely different to how you want to do it. In that case, it makes no sense to just like pump in your whole budget that's available to you. Then of course you want to test it first, and then you have to track it. So you have to test and you have to track. And then after you have that data, then you can learn from it, and then you can like slowly with time, through learning that, improve on these tactics that you're using. But yeah, just to come back to what I said before, the important part is not to plan everything in its details. It's just to have a basic overview for your year. And once you have that, your life, trust me, your life gets so much easier. You have your plan, you know exactly what's happening every month, and then you can do your job and basically just execute those campaigns. And also another thing which I didn't know for a while, which I also had to learn, is, this is a lot. So you're doing ads, you're doing events, you're doing content, you're doing social media, maybe a website, maybe you also have to do a blog, maybe there's some speeches, maybe you have to talk at an event, then there's emails. So this is like a never-ending list of things. And in the beginning, I used to think, oh my gosh, I have to do this all by myself. How am I supposed to do this? And I just kind of tried, my best to do it all by myself. But this is important to know, that you can outsource these things. I mean, it is normal as a marketing manager to outsource these things. It's not your job to be a professional designer, videographer, and professional writer, and this and this and this. It's not even possible to be perfect at all of these things at once. And thus, that is why you outsource. And this is normal. This is not weird to outsource. For example, I outsource Google Ads, LinkedIn ads, Facebook ads. And for example, tomorrow we have a video day where we're shooting an ad video and 3 sales pages videos and a few other things, a few testimonials. And of course, I'm not doing that. There's like professional videographers coming to support me on that. And that doesn't mean that you need someone like a Google Ads person like sitting next to you like the whole day for the whole work week. No, it just means that sometimes it really just means that you check in once every 2 weeks, you discuss, you let them do the specifics that would take you way too long to do, and you take care of the important stuff. And the important stuff, what that is to have the overview, because your job is not trying to break your back to do everything by yourself. Your job is more to be the captain of your ship and to know your company better than anyone else. And that's why it's not a problem that you're outsourcing, even though they can maybe do this and this better than you. It doesn't matter, because they don't have this intrinsic knowledge of your company like you do. And that is your job. Your job is to have this overview and to always, try and improve your strategy, not to get caught up, in the nitty gritty stuff of things. In real life, this job is really just a lot of planning, a lot of organizing, but it's also being creative. And you work in collaboration a lot with experts in their fields, like I just mentioned, the ads experts, or different types of designers for different design projects, and organizing events and stuff like that.
That's great. That's really interesting, especially the outsourcing side of things, because normally people wouldn't think that outsourcing, they kind of think, no, I need to do it myself. We don't have a budget for that, whereas it's not the case. There's always a budget for it. You just need to find the right balance again. And how would you in real life then go off and manage multiple client social media? So I presume there would be a mixture of technology and a bit of outsourcing involved.
Yeah, of course. So that's a good question. I Well, multiple client social media. Of course, now I don't, manage multiple client social media because I just work only for Caplena. But before, as I mentioned, when I was doing freelance marketing for about a year, that was a time when I was managing about 3 to 4 clients' social media. And what I used for that, there are so many different tools. I'm about to introduce you to the world of like different cool tools that you can use, and it's all online and it's super easy. It's a life changer. So so basically I've used both Buffer and Hootsuite, but right now I'm more of a fan of Buffer. But to be honest, with you guys, this is all the same stuff. It doesn't really matter what exact tool you use as long as it does the job. But I think, for me, it's not so much about that you have no time and that's why you have to use this scheduling tool. It's more about timing your posts correctly. Otherwise, you plan all this amazing content and maybe you had a bit of a busy week, but you still need to post this. So maybe Friday rolls around or Thursday and you're just like, okay, I guess I'll just post it now. And it's like, okay, but Friday is literally the worst day to post for engagement. So why would you do that? If you use Buffer or Hootsuite or any other similar tool, it shows you like the ideal times in your time zone for the specific network to post with maximum engagement. So you can like literally choose from these time slots, or you can also just add your own time. And then this way, you can kind of analyze what your social media following, for example, looks like. And then you can say, okay, I know that Wednesdays and Tuesdays are the best to post. Thursday is all right. If you have 2 posts a week, then you can do like maybe a Tuesday and a Thursday. And if you just have one big one, you can do it on a Wednesday. And that way you can schedule, and it just makes everything a bit easier for you. And in terms of content planning, how I usually did this is that I did like half of it by myself, and the other half, again, I outsourced it with different designers. So also it really depends what type of a client you have, because for some companies, they have a really strong brand image, and it's almost a requirement that every single one of their posts ticks all of these boxes. In that case, then yes, you have to definitely work with a designer. Then you probably shouldn't DIY it yourself. But yeah, how I would usually go about with it is first get an overview of what the client needs, have a bit of a brainstorming sesh, then solidify on the ideas more, what could these singular posts look like, and then work with a designer to make literally like a pack of like 30 social media posts and design it, and maybe even create a template, and then just schedule those 30 posts for over the next 3 months. And that way you have regular content coming. But if there is something a bit more specific that you kind of have to do more in the moment, that's fine as well. You can post your more specific content on a more ad hoc basis. But you still, just by doing this, by scheduling these, for example, I'll just say like 2 posts a week, you have this constant flow going, and it just makes everything a little bit more balanced. Another tool though, which I'm not sure if you guys are aware, I'm pretty sure many of you know this, is Canva. So this is also a very easy way to just basically upload like your brand guidelines, and then use templates to basically design your own social media content. So what I usually do is kind of a mix between working with professional designers to doing my own for more simple posts on Canva and just curating it that way for Caplena. But yeah, I think that's all that I have to say for social media and planning content and so on.
Okay, could I just ask why do you prefer Buffer over Hootsuite?
It's just that I've used it more. I used Hootsuite like once in the beginning when I was getting started. But yeah, like I said before, to be honest, both of them are good. They're both pretty much, they do the same thing.
Okay, so the next question. So I know that the company is involved with AI-powered text analytics. Could you tell us what is that, and
Yeah.
how can we use it as marketers?
Yeah, sure. So I know like it's a bit overwhelming when you hear, okay, we're an AI-powered text analytics SaaS. It's like, okay, what does this even mean? But in a nutshell, the co-founders, Maurice and Pascal, they created a software which anyone can easily use. And that's what SaaS means. It means software as a service. So it's all online. And what you do is you just throw in a bunch of text data. And what I mean by text data is like, for example, open-ended responses to surveys or reviews, or maybe even social media comments. And what Caplena does is that it categorizes these text comments. Then they get analyzed through our AI. And the end result is just, things like interactive dashboards. And it basically just gives you actionable results in a very easy and fast way. And also, I guess what is important to say is that the type of text data that we analyze, I mean, maybe it goes without saying because I'm saying responses to surveys and reviews and so on, but it's more quantitative text data that we analyze. And if I were to go a little bit more into detail, and I hope I don't lose any of you here, but just to give you kind of an overview of the process of how these text comments get categorized. This is a process called tagging. So what happens is, if, for example, you have like 1,000 responses to a survey question, and let's just say it's like a survey question about a restaurant, and like 500 of those 1,000 people in some way said that the atmosphere was really pleasant, but they all said it in different words, of course, because it's open-ended, right? So one guy might say like, oh, pleasant atmosphere. Another person would say, oh, I really like the vibe. Everyone has different ways of saying stuff that basically means the same thing. So Caplena, with time, and also the more you give it to learn, the AI gets better. So it basically finds those people and it tags them the same tag. So good atmosphere. And then just imagine it just scans through all the text and it finds different categories of what people are actually talking about. So maybe 500 talked about atmosphere, 300 maybe mentioned rude customer service in some form. And all of these things get basically tracked and recorded. And by sorting through the comments like that, you can then create insights, basically. And I don't know, is it possible that I can paste a link into this chat?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
I've just pasted for you guys if you're interested. I know, like, I'm talking a lot. Maybe it's nice to just look at it. This is what a finished dashboard would look like. And if you hover over, for example, the bar chart and you click on it, then you can basically see the text comments that went into those categories. Yeah, might be cool for you guys to take a look. And if you want to read a bit more about this specific dashboard that I just shared with you, I wrote a whole blog post on it, so which explains everything a bit more in detail. So that's the second link that I just posted. To get back to the last part of your question, which is how we can use it as marketers. So I mean, all of you guys have probably already learned this long ago, that research is an important part in any marketer's job, but it also really depends how the organization is built. So for example, if the company that you work for is bigger, then the chances are that most probably they would outsource their research to an external market research agency. And market research agencies are actually our top target audience. So this is one way that companies could do it. Or sometimes companies also have their internal, like their own research team. And these are usually called like something like CX Insight team, something like that. But sometimes though, also just singular people use Caplena as well in smaller settings. Like for example, us, we could also use it for smaller surveys, or maybe even if you want to quickly run a quick pollfish survey, for example, and you just want to quickly analyze like 1,000 responses or 2,000 or 3,000, then you can just quickly run it through Caplena and get really great insights really quickly. And so Caplena is quite malleable in who can use it. But if I were to say, if how you guys could use it right now, like while studying, this is of course also possible. We have a lot of marketing students actually, or also even students that are writing their master's thesis about or with the help of Caplena. As I said in the beginning, I mean, I'm also studying, and if you have a report due or some sort of an assessment, then it's really great to use it for the background research section. And it's literally like you don't even have to put that much effort into it. You could literally just paste the link from Yelp, even, for example, or from Amazon reviews or Google Maps even. And all you have to do is click analyze, and it literally analyzes however many reviews, for example, there are, and then it gives you insights really quickly. It takes like 10 minutes, and it just makes the whole thing so quick and easy, but it still gives you a really great outcome so that you can use. So this is, I think, a very good way to use it as students as well. Yeah.
So moving on to the next question, how would you effectively use email funnels? So looking at a specific marketing practice, actually using email funnels in real life. And to be honest, in university, they always mention it and it's defined, but there's very rarely strategies put before us.
Okay. Well, maybe I can start out with a few good tools. What I used for the longest time for email automated stuff was MailChimp. And this is what actually most companies that I worked for used. This is also what Caplena actually used when I started working there. It was very good, but we kind of were looking for a tool which would also be good to use for our sales team, so that we could all, collaborate and get information about our customers through that way, to kind of combine those two areas. So we looked at two other tools, and one was called Active Campaign and one was called Customer IO. And in the end, we chose Customer IO just because the user interface and everything was just a bit more straightforward and simple. And Active Campaign, even though it had a lot of great features, it was a bit complicated. So even just to get an overview. So that's why we chose Customer IO, and that's what we're using at the moment. And in terms of what your exact strategy is, there's of course a lot of advice online and so on, and I know maybe it's not the best that I'm giving this advice, just look online, but honestly, if you Google this stuff, there's so many templates, like pre-written emails and like cool ideas of what you could write in what sequence. Like there's even sequences for inspiration. And so that's definitely just a good first place to start. Of course, you don't want to just like copy what they're saying. You want to come up with your own like witty, email automations that you want to do. But in terms of planning your emails and what steps to take, I think it's pretty straightforward. You first have to identify what the touch points of your customers are that are important, and see then where it makes sense to automate. So you can like create diagrams and maybe just brainstorm a little bit, and then identify areas where it's like, this just takes time away from me. Basically, I'm always sending the same email. This could just be automated. And just to give you some, examples of areas that can be automated easily, this would be, for example, onboarding emails. This would be sign up emails, like milestones, like, yippee, you just reached your first 100 credits or something. Checking up on someone after they haven't been active in a while using Caplena, because it can track all of this. If someone hasn't logged in or they haven't performed a specific action, you can check up on, well, it records this, and then it would automatically send an email to them saying like, hey there, we see you haven't tried Caplena out yet, your trial is running out, blah blah blah. Or even tips, giving tips. This is also something which can be automated. I mean, you don't need to like just write the same 3 tips to people all the time. I mean, there's a lot of areas that you can automate, but this isn't really, the true challenge in my opinion. The real challenge is to strike, that perfect balance of not coming across as too spammy, because at the end of the day, I know it's hard to fall into, it's easy to fall, into this trap of, I don't know, making like 100 emails and then just putting like 1 day in between. But this is not really good practice, because your job is also to just genuinely help customers with these automated emails that you send them, not to spam them. And I'm sure, when you guys were learning about different generations and marketing to them, people nowadays, our generation, we grew up, surrounded by ads basically, and we know the drill. We can see bullshit from a mile away, and if an email just in any sort of way is like too spammy, you immediately, your brain, it just switches off, and you don't even read further than one line, and then you just hit spam, and then that's it. You don't want that to happen to your automated emails. Like if they hit spam or they unsubscribe, then you have nothing else, to add to the conversation at all. So you want to make sure that the content, that it's not too much, that you don't email them every single day. You want to keep some time in between. You want to personalize the email as much as you can. And you want more, maybe not wholesome, I'm not talking about like puppies and cute things, but you know what I mean, wholesome content, to make sure that you don't fall into this trap of being too adsy. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Like looking at the email funnel side of things, you don't think it, but all those emails, they're automated over and over and over, and even reminder emails, and oh, you didn't purchase it, do you want to continue the purchase? All that stuff is automated. So we're running out of time, so we move on to another question for you. So with your job, as you said, you got involved with music early on. How do you combine music and marketing in your everyday work? What advice would you give to undergraduates looking to get into marketing as a career? So two kind of separate questions. So the first one, your music and marketing. And the second one, what advice would you give to someone looking to get into marketing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I know music and marketing, it seems like it's two completely different things. And it's like, how did you get into marketing from that? But honestly, to me, at the end of the day, it's all the same thing anyways. With music, you're just trying to support or even create a new narrative, depending, on what it is to, what medium it is to. And marketing is the same. You just basically tell a story with every action that you take and everything that you do. You have to stick to some sort of a story which reflects your company's core values. So at the end of the day, I think this is all being creative. And I think that's kind of what connects those two for me. And for the second part of your question, which is advice for you guys to get into marketing as a career, I think for me is to think a little bit less and just do more. So literally whatever you see, just throw yourself at the opportunities, actively look for internships because they're not going to come to you, and learn relevant and new skills. Also, one thing which is maybe not such an obvious answer to this question, for me is personally very important, is to understand the process of different sectors that you might be potentially, most probably, working with. So like I mentioned earlier, that you're outsourcing a lot, you're always collaborating a lot with different people, like videographers or designers or the sales team. It's important that you kind of at least understand the basics of how they operate, so that you're not that annoying person when you work with a designer and every time you have to ask, oh, so like, what's the next step? You could be streamlining this process by just literally taking 10 minutes to ask a designer, how does this usually work? How do you get from the planning to the end product? And I think that really makes your life a lot, or everyone's life actually, a lot easier. And yeah, my last big tip is, and also why I think this is so cool, that I can help you guys and answer some of your questions, is to definitely look and seek out mentors. Because yeah, in the beginning I was kind of lacking that, but then I decided, to actively look. In my case, I was just looking, for some powerful women that really knew what they were doing, and maybe I was a bit scared of them, but I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna ask them for coffee, and maybe they have some good life advice. And to be honest, they always do. And if you look for people, even if they seem a bit intimidating, I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but for me, it was true that they were always really happy to help. And some of the advice that I gave you guys today is what I got from people like that. I just met them for coffee, and I would just like, ask them all my questions and be like, oh, I'm sorry, this is such a stupid question, but I'm not sure what the correct way to go about things is. And they would just be like, yeah, I got you. So I think it's very important that you get a good mentor, or more than one even. But the only thing that you definitely should not do is nothing. So yeah, that is my last tip, I guess. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks very much. And with the mentor side of things, did you just randomly message people that you knew through other people, or did you go and use a platform, or how did you make those sort of connections? And did you explicitly say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor?
Well, I didn't, use a specific platform for this. Usually they were in my network, or I had already met them once, or maybe we kind of worked together. So it was always something like this. And then, yeah, I usually had a very clear list of like, okay, these are my top 3. They really know what's up. And so I just messaged them and I just asked them. It's just very simple, you just ask them, hey, can I meet you for coffee? I would just like some guidance on this and this topic. And then, yeah, that's pretty much all you have to do. It's pretty simple, and they're always happy to help. I mean, it's like me right now, I'm really happy that I can, or that I'll hopefully be helping you guys with this talk. Yeah.
Just to say, we actually have a mentorship program in place. It was launched in March. Now I know that the opportunity is closed, but for those that are here next year, next September, I'll be applying for that, because you get industry experience straight away and you get that mentor. A very easy process to do it. You just sign up and that's it. You just meet up for coffees and you discuss topics. And I highly recommend it. I did something similar through LinkedIn. So yeah, I really recommend that. That's really good advice. Okay, so then apart from that, I think there was one question here. So
it's just something that I thought might be, I made a bit of a list here, a tech stack, which I thought maybe some of you would find interesting.
Okay, yeah. You can share it there.
Yeah. So I'll just go through it fast because I know we're already running over time. But this is just these are just some important tools that I use for my everyday workflow. So I know Monday.com, you've probably all of you have had like an overly intrusive ad from Monday.com at some point. But it is actually a cool tool. I use this for literally planning every little thing. So I use this for events. I use this as a sort of content haven. So literally everyone in the company is involved. And I just encourage everyone, like especially people working more with the customers or having regular calls with customers or feedback calls, that they put all their questions from those customers into this content haven. And then whenever I'm like, kind of at loss of, okay, what could I be posting, for example, I'm never at loss, because there is just this huge this huge haven of content waiting for me, which is never, it is never empty. It just gets more and more filled up with more questions. And my second thing to add to my tech stack, of course, is customer IO. So this is what I mentioned for the automated email funnels and things like monthly marketing emails and so on. My third one is Canva. So the one that I mentioned, where you can easily make designs and it looks pretty professional, and like you almost looks like a designer did it, but it's just super easy to use. This is a bit of a random one. I haven't talked about this one yet, but it's called Loom. So Loom. This is a screen recording service. So at least for us, we're an app. This is quite important. You can basically just record your screen, and then it puts your video somewhere in the bottom in a little circle. And through that, you can explain things about an application a bit easier. But also what we use this a lot for at Caplena is to streamline some things that might have been meetings, but they don't have to be a meeting. So if you don't have time, you try and compress something which would have been a meeting into maybe like a 1 or max 2 minute video, and you show what you need to show on your screen, and then you just send the link to the people that you're working with, And if they really don't even have time for 2 minutes, then they can just watch it like on 3 times speed. And that way everyone gets all the information that they need. And I just think that's a really cool way to work when everyone's a bit busy and maybe not everyone has time for that meeting at that specific time. They can watch it in their own time. Then I'm almost done. Then of course we also use Nuclenos for onboarding processes for new people. We have like step-by-step info set that they can read through so that everyone gets onboarded and they all have the right knowledge for everything. This is also where I keep the basics of our branding Bible that I that I mentioned in the beginning. So every time a new designer comes into the game, I can just like send them the Nucleno link, and then they can just check it out. And then of course, I know many of us don't want to hear this, but Excel, yeah, it's maybe not the most fun to learn, but it's really important at least to know the basics. Yeah, that's my tech stack. In closing, I would also like to mention to you guys that we have a marketing intern paid position for this summer, maybe like 1 to 3 months, something like that. I guess for you it would just be remote, but yeah, you would be working with me and my team. So just feel free to send me your CVs and maybe a small paragraph in a cover letter of why you would be interested in interning at Caplena. And yeah, I would be very happy to receive your applications.
Perfect. Thanks very much. And Sheila, could you share your email with us, or even the company
Yeah.
email, or what's the best way of sending on those details?
Yes. So for the CVs, this is my company email, sheila@caplena.com. But if you have, also either any other questions like CVs or anything really, any advice, you can also email me on my personal email, which is bugalsheila@gmail.com. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now we have one last question, and it's from Raneem, who's been watching patiently. So Raneem says that they're more attracted to corporate jobs. Why do you like startups? Is it the process of growing with the company? And also they mentioned that you're really
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that this is corporate is something which is more interesting to you. To be honest, it was very exciting for me in the beginning when I started out more in this environment as well. And it's not that I hate it, but it was these series of events that just kind of happened that once I joined a smaller team, I was like, I really like this. And I guess you're right in saying that I really like building something from the ground up and being just like really involved, and hands-on from the beginning, just watching the company grow and thrive. And this is something which I think is very, very exciting. So that's why I'm more attracted to these startup environments.
perfect. Well, that's some response. And I don't know if you see it there, but Raneem says thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you too.
So just to finish, just say to everyone, thanks for watching. Firstly, it's great to have our physical events, but yeah, okay, this is one of the only virtual events we had run this year so far, and it's simply because with COVID and everything, I think people are sick of online events. So great to have you all here. And just to finish, to say a huge thank you, Sheila, for making the time to speak to us here, because it's great, really interesting talk. Even I have notes there, but even with the AI tech software, really interesting to know about that, and just overall to give students a better understanding of what the job entails. It's not just a one person ship, like as you said, it's a collaboration where you work, and you need to know when to outsource, and you need to also know other disciplines, not just your own field, and when the best time even to schedule is. So really insightful stuff. So huge thanks to you. So yeah, I think that's everything. How'd you feel that went, Sheila? Are you happy with with your talk?
Yes, of course. I'm very happy with that, and also thank you for having me. And this was very fun, and I hope that I helped you guys with some of your questions.
So thanks very much again, and everyone have a lovely evening. And just yeah, enjoy, have a break now. That was a lot of information to take on.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you too. Bye everyone.
Bye.